Hopefully load shedding doesn't kick in and interrupt us.
Hopefully not. Okay, awesome. Good morning again, everyone. It is 9:03. Of course, we'll still be letting participants join. I just want to say a big thank you to everyone for joining us today. Some of you may recognize me. I'm the media partner lead here at iLead, and my job is to find the newest, coolest, best opportunities for your business. Today, we have Fritz on the call, one of our newest partners, who will be presenting on seizing opportunities for your business on Amazon. He is an expert in the field, and I'm excited to have him here with us today. Thank you again for joining us, Fritz. Please note that the session is going to be recorded for internal purposes. Before we kick off, I would like to actually open the floor to clients. Does anyone have any points that they'd like to raise on Amazon's entry in South Africa? Any first impressions on the service, or perhaps any questions? We'll give it a second. If not, and see any hands being raised. Okay, Fritz, I think that's proof enough that you are the expert here, and we are more than happy for you to take us through everything. I'm going to hand over to you. Thanks again for joining us today.
Cool, that's my pleasure. Thanks a lot, Emma. Yeah, so I'm really happy to be here and to speak to you about Amazon South Africa. I think it's really important for South African businesses and people to kind of broaden their understanding of it. Not to say that they can't already have that, or maybe they do, but I think there are misconceptions. So if you think about the fact that they launched here just under 1 year ago, that indicates that it's a really fresh market, right? And I think that's also a reason why people have been maybe slightly let down or disappointed, but that just has to do with the expectations they had. So when Amazon launches in a new country, it is never a rocket ship. It's rather a marathon than a sprint. And recognizing that yields a really great opportunity. So, like we kind of summarize here, claim your spot on Amazon ZA before the boom and then scale globally. So, one of the key differences between Amazon and other marketplaces available to South African sellers is the fact that it's a global marketplace. So, even though Amazon ZA right now is just within South Africa, it is ultimately part of the global market of Amazon, which also gives sellers access to that. So what's the most exciting about it is what we call the first mover advantage, which is really simple to understand. And it actually relates exactly to the fact that Amazon South Africa has been not so huge yet, right? Because based on the fact that it's undeveloped by Amazon, meaning certain categories aren't even open, maybe some of the participants are in categories of fashion or ingestibles, for example. And those are some of the biggest categories of e-commerce, and they're not even open on Amazon ZA yet. So it's undeveloped by Amazon, and it's unsaturated by sellers and by customers even, right? So what that means is listing on the platform now, you have the least competition you ever will have. And that might not seem like a very impressive or special kind of thing when you look at the traffic and sales that sellers are experiencing now, which is on the low side. But that's exactly why there is that opportunity, right? If the sales and traffic were huge, then it would be difficult to get in. So that leads to a really key point to understand about Amazon marketplaces globally, which is where Fluid SA comes from, essentially, which I'll touch on later, is that Amazon is considered a pay-to-play platform. You actually have to spend excessive, almost, depending on which country you're launching into. You have to spend a large budget every month on advertising just to get any chance of getting sales. So just briefly, the reason for that is Amazon's algorithm in the search results, it ranks products based on the reviews that it has and the sales history, right? So if you're launching in Amazon Germany or UK or the USA, is of course very appealing since it's the biggest marketplace. then you're not going to have any sales history. So your ranking is going to be on page 20 or lower. And best believe that in every category, there are going to be dozens, even 100 really top sellers that will be above you. So if you come in without any sales history, you're going to be at the bottom, and then you're not going to have any visibility and then not get any sales, right? So there's this kind of chicken and egg problem where in order to get visibility, i.e. sales, you need already have a sales history. So it's like, how do you do that? And this is clever business by Amazon because they make a lot of their revenue from the advertisements that sellers are using on their platform. So that's why it's considered pay to play. So you have to basically spend money on ads. That's the solution to the chicken and egg problem, to get visibility, to generate sales, which will eventually lead to you generating sales organically. So that's why Amazon is considered a pay to play marketplace, which is really important to understand because South Africa, Amazon.co.za, is the only marketplace of Amazon's in the entire world that is not pay to play, at least not yet, right? So that's why we say it saves the investment necessary to enter a developed Amazon marketplace. So a lot of this bets on the fact that Amazon will succeed in South Africa. So of course, listing on it while it's undeveloped is only appealing if in a year, 2 years, or in the future, it does actually develop. So we're very confident that it will, based on quite a variety of reasons, which I'll touch on in the next slide. I'll actually just jump to that now. So the first and foremost reason that can give us real confidence as to why Amazon ZA is going to gain market share and grow in South Africa is their track record. So look at Amazon's launches in bigger countries like Germany or the UK, Japan, India, or maybe slightly more comparable economies to South Africa like Brazil or Australia. Amazon has launched in 20 plus countries, and in every single one of them, they have succeeded. So I mentioned Brazil. They have 2 really big e-commerce local players, kind of like the equivalent of South African Takealot. And of course, when Amazon launched, it wasn't up to scratch with them. They didn't have market share. They didn't have all their warehouses. They didn't have the variety of products, customers, etc. Now, just a few years later, they have equal market share with both of those other players and actually are generating more traffic. Part of the reason for that is their blueprint, which they have perfected over time, which is just their strategy of launching in new countries. So of course, it's not completely rigid. They have a lot of scope for adapting to the local market. And for example, in Brazil, they recently purchased another 10 warehouses. So in South Africa right now, they only have 2 warehouses, but in the future, you can know for sure that that's going to increase. And they actually know the South African marketplace quite well, which is also a kind of added benefit of Amazon ZA that Amazon did not have in a lot of other countries that they launched into. And that's because they've had a presence here with their cloud services for over 20 years. In their headquarters, which is just 10 minutes from where I am now in the center of Cape Town, they have a huge call center, which also supports the entire world. And that's also been going on for many years. So Amazon actually has a pretty good understanding of the South African marketplace. And you can believe that they did their research in choosing South Africa to be their latest country to launch into. Because even though they have immense resources, generating more revenue in 1 year than the entire GDP of South Africa, they're also not wasteful with their investments. So a few years ago, when the rumors were starting about Amazon South Africa, there were parallel rumors of Amazon Nigeria. But we saw them actually consolidate and focus on South Africa instead of Nigeria, although they probably will also launch in Nigeria in the future, since Amazon South Africa is seen as their gateway to Africa as a whole. But the fact that they continued with South Africa should give you confidence that here's Amazon, one of the most successful companies of all time, with leading experts across more fields than you can consider, and they chose our country to launch into, right? And just going back to the fact that it's undeveloped, if you consider these factors, and especially these next 2 points too, then it becomes quite clear that in a couple of years, it's going to look very, very different, right? And there are many case studies that you can look at to understand that, which I can also show you where to look later. But it's basically just understanding what they've done in other countries, which even if you just Google Amazon launch in Belgium, which is one of their most recent countries too, and look at the progression of just a few years and what a difference it makes. So another big point of why they chose South Africa is an e-commerce revolution that's happening here. So the statistic e-commerce penetration is a percentage of all sales that are done online in the retail space compared to brick and mortar, right? And that percentage has grown by 5 times, multiplied 5 times over in the last 6 years. So although it's starting off a small base, which makes that rapid growth possible, it's nonetheless rapid growth. And the statistics are showing that that's just continuing, right? So it's not growing in the 40, 50% year over year range that it was in 2020, 2021, which was of course accelerated by COVID, but it's still growing rapidly, actually outpacing the international average of e-commerce growth, which is a major reason why Amazon chose South Africa. And a last point, which really differentiates Amazon and gives them this kind of cutting edge to any other local e-commerce marketplace, is the fact that they're a global marketplace. So Amazon actually per month gets over 3 billion visitors. That's counting the same people, but still 3 billion visitors every month. And that's because they have a global market, over 20 countries. And that's just where they have established marketplaces, actually reaching over 30, 40 countries. So that's something that Takealot or Macro or other South African markets cannot offer, right? So that means on the one hand, international sellers are going to soon start coming into South Africa via Amazon, and South African businesses can actually reach hundreds of millions of customers around the world. So that's a really special benefit from Amazon ZA. And it really starts with Amazon South Africa to reach those millions of people. So just touching on the last slide here, the last point of the first mover advantage, which is the fact that the rankings and the kind of algorithmic credibility, which is a sales history and reviews that you gain in Amazon South Africa, keeping in mind that it's pretty easy to gain them now because it's so undeveloped, so unsaturated, not competitive. You can actually transfer those across to another country, right? So what we're doing for South African businesses is helping them optimally be set up in Amazon ZA, securing top rankings, and then after some months where reviews have accumulated, sales have accumulated, actually transferring that across to amazon.co.uk, United Kingdom, into Australia, into continental Europe, or into America. And then when you're entering these really competitive marketplaces that otherwise would have required an extensive advertising budget, remember what I described about Amazon's pay-to-play nature, having to spend money to get sales. Now you can enter these marketplaces without having to invest nearly as much as you would have otherwise, because you're not coming in as a sort of fresh seller without any history. You're actually entering as almost a seasoned Amazon seller. And that all comes from listing on Amazon South Africa as soon as possible, right? Because every month that passes, Amazon ZA is developing a lot more, especially at this early stage when its growth rates are really rapid. So here we speak about 3 billion reasons to sell on Amazon, and that has to do with the visitors that they receive on a monthly basis. And again, emphasizing the difficulty of penetrating Amazon's global marketplaces. So just to touch on why I'm able to kind of say this with such certainty is because Fluid SA, which was South Africa's first Amazon agency, or at least full service Amazon agency, we basically spun off of an agency in Germany, which is also a full service agency and has been very lucky to be connected with really strong German brands, kind of household names in Europe that have the advertising budget necessary to enter Amazon.com USA, its biggest marketplace. So with that agency, we were able to grow lots of these big brands in the US using their kind of budgets. And it was greatly successful and continues to be, but it's not something that is really attainable for most businesses. If you're a small, medium, even a large South African business, they maybe can't mobilize the thousands and thousands of euro per month that might be necessary to enter Amazon USA, right? So we know how tough it is to penetrate those markets. And that's why we're so excited about Amazon ZA. And that's really why Fluid SA launched in South Africa, because the South African marketplace offers an open playing field. So businesses, South African businesses that otherwise never would have been able to enter Amazon USA or Germany, now they actually can because of Amazon South Africa. So if you look at the roadmap, which basically just describes what I've been speaking about, it starts with listing on the undeveloped Amazon ZA, where you can accumulate reviews and sales without spending anything on advertising, or very little. With many of our selling partners in South Africa, they have spent maybe 300 Rand on ads in 5 months. And that's just because there's not enough traffic for the pay-per-click is a type of ads, for those ads to really accumulate large expenditures. But nonetheless, they've gained great sales. So we'll look at a case study that illustrates this in a moment. But then the next step is, as Amazon's market share develops, which for these reasons mentioned, we're confident that it will, considering what they've done in other countries, considering South Africa's economic circumstances, considering Amazon's strength and what differentiates them from any other e-commerce platform. They are the inventor of e-commerce in many ways. It seems clear that their market share will develop in South Africa. So as Amazon's market share grows, I think the best metaphor is to imagine rising with the tide. You're listed on it while it's low and empty, but as its market share grows, you can retain the rankings that you've achieved and secured while it is weak or still unsaturated, and then organically grow sales. Organically, instead of paying to play in any other Amazon marketplace. So this is already a fantastic achievement once we've gotten to this stage, which we have already for a few South African businesses. And for many, they still need to be patient. But the next beautiful opportunity is actually launching globally, right? So it's using this credibility you've achieved in South Africa and Amazon Marketplace, which are all interconnected, to launch into an Amazon global marketplace. So whichever one best suits your brand would analyze and propose to you. So that can be the USA, which is of course the biggest one. Amazon generates about 2/3 of their revenue from the USA, or it could be Europe or America, South America, Asia. So basically listing on Amazon ZA ASAP makes a clear path for your business to go global. And when we think of globalization, it can, I think, be quite a daunting thing. So I'm sure most businesses would say, yes, we'd love to increase our target market and be a global brand, but it's quite hard to achieve that. So that's where the business model of our German partner is established, because the expense that these German brands would have had to incur to launch into another country would be very large if they were going for the brick and mortar entry, paying for shelving space, trying to get into a country that way. But with Amazon, I don't know of any way that's easier to go global. Of course, there are still challenges, but it can be done completely digitally, sending in stock into Amazon's warehouses, which has a very established system. Amazon's infrastructure for globalization is the most developed of any company in the world. And that's why they're able to generate more revenue than South Africa's entire GDP, right? So globalization is the opportunity for South African business to go global is never been clearer than it is today, actually, because of Amazon South Africa and how it can lead into this global marketplace. So here I'm going to skim past this case study because it has to do with the German brands, but here you can kind of see the caliber of what we've accomplished with them. This is in euro, so growing millions in sales within a few years. But that's only possible if you have that really big advertising budget, which we will not presume that South African businesses have, which is why we have this roadmap for them. So if we look at a case study of a South African manufacturer, this is a business that we partnered with in the beginning of last year. They took the first mover advantage by launching on an unsaturated and undeveloped Amazon. And I'll just quickly run you through how that process works when you partner with an Amazon agency. So as a full service Amazon agency, as we are, as opposed to others that might just do very specific things, it starts, of course, with a lot of research and preparation. So we will analyze your business, the margins of your product, which ones are most compatible to e-commerce, your brand positioning, all of those kind of details before we actually commence, just to see how feasible will it be for you and what can we expect. So I want to focus quite a bit on product content because it's an often underestimated point of Amazon success, because it's so important, right? So there's an expression between Amazon sellers, or at least agencies, that content is king. And the reason for that is, on such a competitive marketplace, if you want to stand out, you're going to have really beautiful, not just beautiful, data-driven content. So if we look at an Amazon search results page, you'd search your keyword, and you get all the results, and the main points shown by data as to what will determine the first important metric that we measure, which is the click-through rate, which is basically a ratio of impressions, which is all of these have now received an impression from me to click, right? So they all are trying to compete with me to click on one of them. And that ratio is critical. You always want to improve your click-through rate. And one of the most important characteristics of a product to receive a click is the cover image, right? You can see how significant it is in the space it takes up. The other one is, of course, the price and also the reviews that you see here, but the cover image is consistently shown to be really important. So Fluid SA, because of the importance of content, has a graphic designer within our team and a kind of network of artists that we can rely on to create best-in-class content. So here's an example of some of our work, and you can see best practices that only top agencies use, because it's a bit of a trick with Amazon where you insert kind of key infographics. Like we have this crossed out mosquito here, this South African flag. This is Amazon.com, by the way. So I'll explain that kind of roadmap that Fever Tree followed just now. But adding these images, these key points, we've seen the difference it's made with click-through rates, right? So now they see the mosquito crossed out, they see the South African flag. It's a bit more interesting than perhaps one that's completely bare with no added accessories, let's call it. So now you click into it and the importance of content remains, right? So another expression is that the copy, so the text here is actually for the robots, for the algorithm to determine what's relevant on this page, what does it have to do with, and the images are for the people. So people will look here at these infographics, seeing, okay, what does this do? Very easily, clearly see it lasts 30 hours. Here's the shield repelling insects, effective, natural. So it really is not rocket science, but it's critical. And we will see a lot, especially in South Africa. We're constantly seeing businesses listing on Amazon that don't have this most basic content that they need. So just basic infographics. And then if you scroll down below the fold, there's another space to advertise your brand with content like this. And this is something that Takealot and other platforms don't really dive into. They're a lot more simple in that way. And it's something that South African businesses definitely need to understand, is the importance of content to not just stand out, but do the basics right on Amazon. And that actually further adds to the opportunity in South Africa, because so many businesses aren't Amazon educated. So if you follow these kind of basic best practices of more developed countries like Amazon USA or Germany, you're already standing out. And if you're considering going global, this is certainly a requirement. And you can also see the brand store, which is basically a mini website you can create within Amazon where no other products are advertised but your own. And this is something that we create entirely with our content development team, which is really data driven. So it's not just supposed to be beautiful, but it's supposed to be tweaked based on metrics that we get back, real-time data of customer interactions with it. So product content is key.
Fritz, a quick question on my side, since we're looking at these product listings and best practices regarding these listings specifically. Are there specific products or services that might perform better than others? Are there categories that Amazon prefers? Is there sort of a guideline there?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thanks. So I get asked that a lot. A lot of businesses wondering, what's the best category to sell in? Maybe people that are trying to source products even to get those best sellers. But I think the better question to ask is, try to name a product or category that does not sell well on Amazon. And you'll be really hard pressed to do that, because it's ultimately like a mall, it's a huge shopping platform. And if your product is high quality, then it's going to sell well. If there's a demand for your product, then Amazon's going to work for it. So that's really the number one most important factor that we consider when partnering with a brand or a business. Is not, is this a good category? Is your product good? If your product has been shown to be desired by consumers, they're enjoying it, they're rebuying it, if it's relevant, if it's a repurchasable product, and they're engaging with it well, then of course it can work well on Amazon. There are not magic categories. There is just this marketplace where customers are going on to find what they're looking for. And if you think about how customers do that, they'll often just Google something. So this is something that I should maybe emphasize, which is the beauty of listing on Amazon, is that essentially you're partnering with this global behemoth as a marketing partner, right? Because if you're listing on their platform, it's in Amazon's best interest for you to get sales. So they're going to push your product on Google, right? So now you're partnering with this business that is spending millions of dollars per month, just in South Africa even, to get their sellers' products ranked well in Google. So if someone just Googles it, Amazon might be one of the first results and your product will be up there. So yeah, that's a really awesome opportunity. So if we keep looking through what we did with this brand, Fever Tree, so we started with listing them in South Africa after a lot of research and kind of decisions. And then over time, we've already actually grown to really awesome sales in South Africa, which is really cool to see. And then we've already been able to leverage that to launch into the USA, as we showed. So this is in the US, into the UK as well, and into Australia. So Fever Tree is now a global brand starting from Amazon ZA. So we secured the first mover advantage for them. They were the number one, or they continue to be the number one ranking product within their category of South Africa within Amazon ZA, which is something that would have taken years to achieve in any other Amazon marketplace. It's impossible to get top rankings quicker than it is in South Africa. And then our process is one of iterative growth. So we don't expect our sellers to immediately scale, right? So the reason why my co-founder is a computer scientist and a data expert is because Amazon gives you a lot of data to work with. So once we launch a brand, we start to get a lot of data feedback from customer interactions, and then we actually tweak the listing. We change the advertising campaigns. We change the content. We run A/B split tests. We change the pricing. Pricing strategies are something you can implement every 15 minutes on Amazon. Those are the kind of things we're doing. I don't want to go too deep into all the technical stuff because it might not be the most interesting, but you must check out our website, Fluid SA, and you can see our process. Just looking through it. And of course, for iLead partners, we are offering even more extensive free consultation. So a free audit is what we're willing to provide to everyone connected through iLead. And here you can also learn more about our process. So starting with the consultation, going into the setup, where we're optimally positioning your products, and then into the growth phase, as I mentioned, following a data-driven strategy, altering all these different details, and then looking to globalize, right? And you can also see the range of our services here, which, as we write, handle everything to grow brands on Amazon. So account management is the biggest part of that, but content creation is super important, as I've emphasized, and the ability to go global, which has to do with a lot of compliance too, right? Because if you want to sell your product, like with Fever Tree, we had to comply with a lot of different policies of Amazon USA or of the American government, of the Australian government, of the British government, etc. And then, of course, there's logistics. So I won't dive into the different types of logistics, but know that there are quite a variety of options of using Amazon's warehousing, using your own warehousing, using Amazon couriers, your own couriers, and we will find the best mix for your products or the best combination. So yeah, that covers most of what I wanted to discuss. We can also see details of our German case studies in the USA. But I think the most interesting is definitely the South African one, and how it's completely possible for any South African business with a quality product to launch on Amazon ZA, to grow on Amazon ZA, and then grow globally. And to just emphasize one last time, the first mover advantage, because it is time sensitive, right? The longer you wait, the weaker that first mover advantage will get. So it's still been less than 1 year since Amazon launched here. They're still not super impressive, but best believe that for some of these reasons we mentioned, Amazon South Africa will succeed. So to conclude, I'd like to also give you guys the opportunity to check out this podcast we did with iLead, and feel free to scan here to get into that podcast.
Awesome. Fritz, thank you so much. What an incredibly insightful session. I think it's super exciting where Amazon is in South Africa at the moment. And I think, yeah, we've stressed this enough, but that first mover advantage, really hopping on the opportunity as it stands. I would like to, before urging clients to reach out to their account managers for more information, perhaps open the floor for any questions. I think you did a great job. No questions. Everyone is up to speed. Guys, we will be sending an email out. Oh, we've got one from Jenny Ann. Does this formula apply to books too?
Yes, for sure. Definitely. Books is how Amazon South Africa started. I mean, how Amazon started in America 30 plus years ago. So it's definitely something that's very established on the Amazon platform, and the first mover advantage is there for it too.
Thank you. I think maybe we'll give it another minute or so if anyone else is typing out a super long one. Otherwise, I think we're all good. Guys, just in case you missed it, Fritz or Fluid SA is offering free extensive consultations to all of our clients. So please do reach out. There will be an emailer going out with my email. Otherwise, please do reach out to your account managers so we can get the ball rolling for you guys. All right. That's all.
Cool,
we'd
thanks.
like to thank you guys for joining once again, and I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your week. Fritz, thank you for taking us through that. It was a great session.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Cheers,
Thank
everyone.
you, Fritz.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Yeah,
Bye.
Thanks a lot.
Cameron's hand is up, and I've just left. Oops.
I'm still here. I can answer a question.
I think he's left, right?
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.